Viroids and prions, although they are included under virology, they are not the cells. They are not even the viruses. Okay. So, what are they? Okay. So, they are unconventional infectious agents. They are not viruses, not bacteria, parasites, fungi, nothing they are. Okay. They are just macromolecules. As we all know that they are proteins. Okay, and proteins that are able to cause fatal diseases. Especially the hosts are throughout all different types of cells, like how viruses have been seen causing infection in humans, animals, bacteria, plants, everywhere. Like that, even these proteins are able to cause infection in all types of host cells, be it human, be it animal, yet they are not even living beings. So let us have a detailed information about them. So when we say prions, okay, they are as you told me, they are proteins. What kind of proteins they are? They cause infections in brain and they affect the nervous system. Now they are also called as transmissible spongiform encephalitis. Each word means a lot of things. Transmissible meaning it can be transferred from one person to other. How and when, that we will see within next few slides. Spongiform is called, anyone knows why it is called a spongiform? Because it creates vacuoles. स्पंज तो देखा है आप लोगों ने, स्पंज बहुत सारे वैक्यूल्स रहते हैं, उसके उसके अंदर पोरस स्ट्रक्चर होता है स्पंज का. So it is going to create that kind of structure of the organ that it is affecting, the brain. Okay. So what it does is, it is going to make an inflammation in the brain. It is going to make it appear sponge-like, and it is not only going to be restricted to the person who is affected, but it is going to get transmitted also. So it is also called as transmissible spongiform encephalitis. I hope this is clear. It affects humans, goat, sheep, deer, cats. None of the TACs is short form for transmissible spongiform encephalitis. None of TACs evoke a host immune response. That is even more dangerous, isn't it? First, when immune response is evoked, our immune system gets alarming signal, and then immune system can act. However, here they are not evoking any kind of immune response. Now, again, that's another question. Why it is not evoking immune response? इसका आंसर भी मिल जाएगा आगे as we know more about them. So, non-inflammatory vacuolation, that is spongiosis in gray matter of the brain. Okay, please note this, that it is causing effect in gray matter and not the white matter. As you can see it on the screen, normal brain looks like this. Okay, and when the kuru, which is a part of this kind of disease, prions causing disease infection, you see there are a lot of vacuoles here, or BACs, which is generally the encephalitis in cattle, or even in case of scrapie, which is a disease caused in sheep. Okay, you see big and small vacuoles, sponge-like appearance in the brains of particular affected individuals. So, on the left hand side, you can see how brain is changed completely after the infection, and you can see some black uh, discoloration in the brain where it is affected. The oxygen supply is not proper, therefore the cells have got dead, and you can see some black lining there. Okay, so this is how affected brain looks like. So it all started in a tribal area, okay, where the tribe was known as people called Fore, Fore. Okay, Fore. It was a ritual that was followed in these people, that whenever a person dies, okay, they were they used to eat the body parts of that person, okay, as a ritual, as to show how much they love the person, okay. So they were unknown to the fact that if the person was infected, they, because they were eating the body parts of that person, they were also getting infected. And this continued for a long time, almost 10 50 years stuck. They had this kind of infection seen among them. Nobody used to go near them because they were deep in jungles they used to live, and even they used to eat human beings, so they were said to be cannibalistic, right? And if you know, they're said to be endocannibalism. Endo meaning when you eat your own species. So they were endocannibalistic. So people used to avoid going to near them. But then few scientists managed somehow to live with their community, and they realized that this could probably be the reason that one person who is affected, they're eating the flesh of that affected person, and they are also getting affected. So the disease or the infection that was seen was called as kuru, okay, which is also known as laughing sickness. So what was this kuru? Kuru developed in three important steps or stages. First one was ambulant stage. Ambulant stage means primary stage, you may say it as, wherein the person starts losing the gait. Gait meaning the balance of the body. Okay, unsteady gait, meaning the person cannot hold himself or herself properly. Voice, eyes, hands, everything starts showing tremors. Why? Because your part in the brain which controls all these is getting affected. Then you see slurred speech and loss of coordination in lower extremities moving upward. So first your legs are affected, and then slowly it moves upward. As you can see, the guy in the picture is not able to stand. Person has to hold that little boy in order to take him, move him from one place to other. Then came the secondary stage where the person needed support to walk and started showing jerky muscular movements. It also showed depression or extreme, like either the person will be too depressed or he will be laughing out like a mad person. Little madness would be seen, and mental slowing will also be seen. And the third stage is the terminal stage, whereas there was difficulty in swallowing, incontinence or deep ulcerations would be seen, and tremors severity would be increased. So these were the three stages, and of course, terminal step meaning the person would be totally bedridden. Okay, the person is bedridden, and anytime he or she may die. So this is how the three different stages of Kuru disease proceeded. Then came why that was happening. So as I told you, two scientists um, actually went and lived within the community, and they tried to get the reason. So they understood Kuru was hereditary, and they did not get this concept just out of blue. In fact, there was an experiment with planaria which was made, and they could get the some kind of clue from this experiment.
So, what was this planaria experiment? This experiment was carried out by two scientists, Thompson and McConnell. So, what they did was they grew planaria, and while growing, they conditioned these planaria with two things. Okay, one is bright light, and another is electric shock. So they were exposed to these conditions, and so planarians got adapted to react to those stimuli. Okay, and after many days, when planaria were conditioned to these stimuli, they removed the electric shock, gave only one stimuli, which was bright light. But to their surprise, planaria reacted like it was both bright light as well as electric shock. This was the basic experiment. Then later what they did, as you all know, planaria has the ability of regeneration. So they trained that planaria for these stimuli, and after it grew fully, they cut this planaria into two halves. And when they cut it, each half grew into new planaria. Now, to their surprise, both the new planaria, which were regenerated, should I say, also had the ability to react to the stimuli of bright light and electric shock the way the original planaria reacted. Okay, and to add to it, they also did another experiment. What they did was, in 1963, they repeated the experiment, but instead of cutting the trained flatworm into two pieces, they made very small pieces of that flatworm. Okay, and uh, these pieces were given to other flatworms as to feed upon. Okay, to their surprise, these flatworms who ate the pieces learn to respond to the stimuli of bright light and shock much faster than the earlier trained flatworm that they cut. you know so throughout this different experiments, they got an idea that how there was a transfer of memory through endocannibalism, and this is how they got an idea of probable endocannibalism reason behind the transfer of kuru.
Animal model chimpanzee was used, and within 18 to 21 months of incubation, they could isolate. Lots of experiments were carried out. The first experiment was of Gajdusek and Blumberg, Daniel Carleton Gajdusek and Baruch Blumberg, who got their Nobel Prize for the discovery of transmissible spongiform encephalitis. 1972, it was earlier to the discovery, there was a scientist called Stanley Prisner. Prisner also got Nobel Prize, but much later. Okay. These scientists just discovered that there is some kind of infection that is seen which is causing spongiform like appearance in the brain. But who is the causative agent? And isolation of that agent was done by Stanley Prisner. So he initiated the process of isolation of the agent, which caused Kuru. Not only Kuru, Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease (CJD), which was a London version of this Kuru, and Scrappy, as I told you, that which affects the sheep. So he found the gene encoding prion in 1984. Just look at the years. He started in 1972, and almost 12 years he worked on that, and he finally found the gene encoding that particular protein. So that gene was known as PRPC, which was in the normal form. But in because it was in Scrappy, he found it first. He told that mutated form of the gene as PRPSC, which showed the diseased form. So PRPSC. Then in 1994, Reed Wickner also found one similar kind of gene in yeast. Okay, but there was no homology found out with the actual protein. 1997, Prisner got Nobel Prize for prion. So that is very, long wait for him. 1972, he started working. 1984, he got his gene, and 1997 he got his Nobel Prize for the discovery. So what he told us is a prion is a proteinaceous infectious particle. Now protein है तो we would say protein तो degrade हो जाता है किसी भी proteases के साथ, but that was not the case. These are very resistant proteins. They were resistant to all types of treatment that we could do at that particular time, 1997. And last Kuru case was seen in 2005. Okay, so these proteins were resistant to proteases, even autoclaving. And autoclaving we do only 15 to 20 minutes, but even for one hour of treatment, it was not being destroyed. Alkaline cleaners, UV, ethanol, organic solvents, heat, formaldehyde, everything was not working against this particular type of protein. So researchers, what they used one normal NaOH, okay, and followed by a treatment of autoclaving for 4 to 5 hours. Not only autoclaving, because autoclaving we use 121 degrees Celsius, but they use 132 degrees Celsius. And they used it for 4.5, say sometimes 5 hours. So according to the researchers, it was very difficult, and it was difficult to find out that what will work against this particular type of protein, which was resistant to all treatments. Now, if we see gene form of the prion, as we have already seen, PRNP is the gene, and the protein we named it as PRPC as normal and PRPSC because it was obtained from Scrappy. Prisoner noted it as SC, but we may also call it as PRP-RES, res for resistance. Okay, so this particular protein was resistant to all kind of treatment. So it is located on the short arm of the chromosome 20 in humans. I hope you remember what is short arm and long arm. Short arm is called as P arm. So on the 20th pair of the P arm of the 20th chromosome, we have that prion gene located. That gene is called as PRNP. Now, this gene encodes 254 amino acids, and we are also going to see how the structure looks like. And when the process of translation occurs, okay, this protein that is generated is targeted via secretory pathway to the neurons and other cell types. Glycosyl inositol is the what you may say, it is the surface receptor which is like going to anchor it in the membrane where it will bind to copper ions. Now this presence of copper ions, we will see it in the pathway that these copper ions play a very important role. So then अगर वो copper ions के साथ bind हो गया तो it is endocytosed to get degraded by lysozymes. So you will understand what this actually means. Before before that, we will just take a look at the gene. You can see the 20th chromosome and location shown on the in the diagram. PRNP gene located on the short arm P arm of the chromosome 20 at position 13. Okay, 20p13. And अगर precise location चाहिए तो they have also mentioned where exactly it is lying, but that is not important exam point of view. So this is what I was talking about, the pathway. Now see, on the left hand side, whatever we are saying is a normal pathway. The right hand side is an abnormal pathway. So what happens on the normal pathway? First is this. PRPC is synthesized on rough ER. Correct? And as we just said that it follows a secretory pathway which goes through Golgi apparatus, right? And here you can see PRPC moves to plasma membrane via Golgi secretory pathway to bind to Cu+. So now it has come to the membrane. PRPC cycled from the membrane into endocytic vesicle. So it went to membrane, it was bound to Cu2 plus, and then it was endocytosed. PRPC is either degraded or it moves back to the cell surface to bind to Cu. So there are two possibilities here. Either it will get degraded or it will move back to the अगर बाइंडिंग नहीं हुआ तो विदाउट बाइंडिंग अगर एंडोसाइटोसिस हो गया तो वापस बाइंडिंग के लिए वो ऊपर जा सकता है. So this is a cycle that is followed. However, in abnormal conditions, what may happen? The fifth part is changed. This particular role of degradation, उसके बाद यहाँ पे changes हो सकते हैं. So what is it? Conversion or folding of PRPC to PRP resistant leads to accumulation. So you can see here, normal is shown in the color of blue, okay, aqua blue. But the changed form which is generated in the lysosome, okay, in that changed form, the new form, that is purple colored form of PRP RES, is generated, and then it goes on the surface and binds. So if this happens, then you may say that the wrongly uh, folded protein has got has been generated, and it is going to now affect, because ultimate location क्या है secretory pathway से, it is going to go to neurons, right, and other types of cells. So अगर वो होता है तो ये wrong protein वहां पे जाएगा, तो it will create havoc in the body. Now, transmission could be oral, intracranial, or iatrogenic. So, most of the times, oral pathway is inefficient, because you know that there are lots of problems when it comes to oral. It goes to digestive system, and through digestive system it has to come into the body to reach to अपना ये neural nervous system. So most of the times what is seen is, when it is oral, it affects gastrointestinal tract. Very rarely it reaches to nervous system, but still then you have we have got proof that, or we have got evidences that people, because of the endocannibalism, it has started. So it has affected many people that way. Intracranial, when there is transmission, then it affects splanchnic or vagus nerve of the sympathetic peripheral nervous system in lower limbs, and that is why it affects legs first and then goes extending its location towards brain. ठीक है. So ये nervous system कौन सा affect कर रहा है? Peripheral nervous system को affect कर रहा है, not the central nervous system directly. First it affects the, एक type का nerve है vagus nerve of sympathetic peripheral nervous system, splanchnic and vagus nerve. Okay. Then it may invade brain afterwards via hypoglossal nerve of the tongue. And there was a scientist who estimated infectious dose 50 of bovine spongiform encephalitis in humans in 10 raised to 13 molecules. So this was again a very crucial experiment carried out by Gunn, who told that how many particles would really generate infection when injected in humans. Okay, so that number came out to be 10 raised to 13 molecules. I hope you know ID, LD, what it stands for. ID 50 stands for infectious dose, and LD 50 अगर है तो stands for lethal dose. Now what does that 50 stand for? So ID 50 means if given to 100 people, 50 of them will cause the infection or get the infection. Okay. So out of 100, when 50 get the infection, ऐसा कितना डोज है? So वो है 10 raised to 13 molecules का. समझ में आ रहा है? 10 raised to 13 molecules के बाद ही 50% will be exposed. Yes. Now, take this. The incubation period of this particular infectious agent is 20 to 56 years. Now, इतना तो पूरा life हो सकता है किसी का, isn't it? Most of the times it may happen that throughout the life you won't show any kind of symptom as well. Okay. Why it is spongiform we already talked about, and I already showed you the pictures also, that when we see the microscopic image of the tissue, we see a lot of vacuoles like sponges. So the spongiform. And they're also called as astrocytes. Astrocytes, you might be knowing astrocytes are the ones neuronal cells which are called as. So they become inflamed. Okay, astrocytosis, and a lot of neuronal loss due to apoptosis is seen.
Amyloid plaques are nothing but the deposits of proteins called beta amyloid, and because of these proteins, neurons cannot, communicate with each other, and therefore the passage of information from one neuron to other is stopped. This kind of plaques are also seen in degenerative disorders like Alzheimer's, you must have heard of. So, this is one of the reasons for TACs as well.
We know that PRPC is converted to resistant form, and that is why the whole game is taking place. So, what is the normal gene? So normal gene is actually going to lead to the octa-repeat copper binding site, which will not have any kind of role in the infection. And other site is outside the octa-repeat, which is lying in the hydrophobic region. This is more involved in the disease. So I will show you how the regular gene protein looks like. So this PRPC, you can see here how it is looking. You have lots of amino acids here, and you see helix also, not beta sheet here, but alpha helix. You may see yellow and red colored. Okay, whereas after the changes, you can see the beta sheet in green particular layer, and yellow folding, yellow alpha helix, you will be seeing here there are no such things seen, PRPSC form. So the two conformational states will tell you whether the protein product is normal or abnormal. So the normal protein does not have propensity to aggregate, which is seen in conformationally changed or remodeled form. Then beta sheets are not seen in normal protein, which is seen in changed form. Then normal protein is easily degraded by proteases. But this is not so. Normal protein is not neurotoxic, not infectious. But the changed protein is so. So just little modeling, remodeling, conformational restructuring of the protein, and you have lot of havoc created in the body. So PRNP protein, there are so many different modelings of the conformational modelings are known, that 50 different types of mutations scientists have yet come across. 50 different types of known mutation. So कौन से इसमें mutation होता है? तो कोडॉन 129 नंबर पे म्यूटेशन दिखता है. Most of the times it is point mutation, which is either methionine or valine is encoded at that position. So अगर methionine encode हो जाता है तो dementia like condition generate होती है. अगर valine coded हो जाता है, and when they are talking about homozygosity, meaning on both 20 के दो पेयर, मतलब पेयर है ना 28 क्रोमोसोम का, सो दोनों में अगर मिथियोनिन मिथियोनिन है तो होमोजाइगोसिटी डिमेंशिया लाइक कंडीशन, डिमेंटिंग डिसीज. अगर वैलिन होमोजाइगोसिटी है तो अटैक्सिया, लॉस ऑफ मोटर कोऑर्डिनेशन इज सीन. So these all will affect the different ways. So how do we treat it? Very difficult to treat. But then earlier जितना knowledge था उससे बहुत ज़्यादा अभी हो रहा है, क्योंकि we have got different ways to uh, treat this particular infection. First of all, beta derivatives and our curcumin spice, anthracyclines, polyanions and polypyrines, porphyrines and beta sheet breakers. अगर beta sheet breakers काम कर गए तो nothing like that, because that is what is protecting it from different proteases and action of different degraders. siRNAs are newly being tested for their efficiency in the treatment. These all things work well in vitro, but nothing has been tried in human trials. We know the antibodies, monoclonal antibodies, are also being generated and targeted for many diseases and infections. So, anti PRP antibodies, actually, that should be anti PRP resistant, okay, antibodies. So, that changed form ke against we could generate antibodies. The problem is, uh, it is not completely removing symptoms, it is just showing the late symptoms. And one another problem is, because antibodies are also taken as foreign particles, okay, that is also causing some kind of problem in the body. So this is also another difficulty in use of anti PRP antibodies. So scrappy is another similar kind of infection seen in sheep. A rare disease of cattle first reported in 1947 and diagnosed meaning actually understood the reason for it in 1985. So till then, it was unknown why something is happening to cattle. It was called as mad cow disease till then, because cattle used to, not behave properly. It used to affect their nervous system as well. So the symptoms of such scrappy lasted for 2 to 6 months before the cow was dead. And as I told you, CJD is a variant form. Um just a another form which was first observed in humans in 1996 in UK. And you can see there are two types of CJDs that are observed. One is classic CJD and second is variant. The cause of the CJD was as written. It was because of the ingestion of cattle organs infected with BSEs, bovine spongiform encephalitis. Okay, median age of death was 68 years in classic CJD. That has now come to 28 years in variant CJD. And the duration of the illness has also increased. It was from 4 to 5 months to 13 to 14 months. So there are many other symptoms which are varying from the classic form. That is not important syllabus point of view, but you may also just remember that there are these two forms observed. So this was all about prions. I hope prions, concept of prions is very clear.